Commissioners meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone parking for this meeting or using the bus may pick up passes on your way out, and that is valid for today only. Ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before this board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote. All right, we move to our consent agenda this evening. Does anyone in our audience have any questions about or comments about the consent agenda this evening? All right. Commissioners, we do need a motion and a second to add our rail transit support letter to this evening's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Do we have a motion and a second to move forward with this evening's agenda with the addition?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you all. Okay, we move to public comment this evening. The time limit for individual comment to the board is 3 minutes. Please state your name before you begin speaking. If your time expires, you may leave any question along with your name, address, and phone number with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. This is your time to speak to us. All public comments must be directed to the board as a whole, not to individual commissioners, staff, or audience members. There is no clapping, snapping, or booing allowed. The board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the board during the same meeting. Please note that a group can elect one person to speak for 10 minutes if 8 people in attendance relinquish their right to speak on the issue. And this evening, for public comment, we do have Julie. And Julie, when you come to the podium, please state your last name for us as well. And come to the, right up here. Yes, ma'am.
Oh gosh, Julie Forbes, is that good? Okay. I'm not a public speaker. I worked with children in private rooms with special needs children, so forgive me, and I'm now elderly. I first want to just thank a couple of people, Drew Christie, Millie Smith, Kevin, who I talked to today, Eric Ager, and people who have helped us. But many of you have the photographs that Jennifer Avila sent around. Ah, yes. Sorry, many of you have, you all have the photographs that Jennifer Avila's copied, right? The 15 photographs? Okay, I have 150 at home, but I only brought 15 for y'all. I have given 150 to Eric Ager and some other people. And I just, at the 2-year point, just so you know, I'll give the personal and sort of some details about it. I'm 68, and during these 2 years post-Helene, I live at the River Knoll and Tunnel Road, where the Tunnel Road Bridge collapsed. They found us on day 4, FEMA. Yes, FEMA. And anyways, it is, even though we've had a lot of progress, it is still a very difficult situation. There are tremendous fire hazards and health hazards. My internist is very concerned about me and about health issues. I'm sure that you can see, I've taken photographs of the packed balconies where if you stand underneath there, an oven can fall on you, a refrigerator. There's wet mattresses, insulation. The fire hazard danger is astronomical. And it needs to be bulldozed as soon as possible. It's 2 years and it's kind of getting really hard. The same for health problems. We really have got to get exit 55 and those 5 businesses bulldozed. for health. And it's now the summer, and I fear fire. And who knows if somebody has kerosene in their home or bullets or firecrackers? You just don't know. It's terrifying. We all pray for a fire and fear a fire, right? So I just beg of you to get all of this cleared up. And the personal part, well, first of all, vagrants. We have graffiti now, homeless, people canvassing us on motorcycles, taking videos, coming back to steal. They put a little orange cone at a place where they put drugs. The next car comes in, buys the drugs, leaves. It's drug addicts, it's homeless, criminals. It's terrifying. Motorcycles at night, glass shattering at night, hard to sleep. Okay? It is an unbearable situation, and I'm begging you to please, and from what I understand, things are going to be done. Will I make it? The situation is I'm 68. I've been here for 2 years. As I've been here, my left eye I've lost my vision and my mobility has gone down. I need to buy into a nursing home into Givens, but that's $400,000. My home is worth $450,000. I paid cash, but
Thank you. You may share the rest of your comments with us via email or leave them with the manager or clerk.
via email.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Or
I
you
thank
can
you
leave them
very
with the
much.
manager or clerk. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment, not the public hearing, who did not sign up? All right, thank you.
Chair Edwards, there is someone else.
Oh, yes. Come forward, Peppy. Just state your name and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for catching that, Commissioner Horton. And this is in regards to just public comment, not the public hearing for the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Pepe Acebo. I am an Asheville City Schools Board of Education member. You guys all know me, but I'm just saying that for the benefit of the recording. I am hoping that the county commissioners will put on their calendar some discussion or presentation about civil enforcement of violations related to yellow buses. We are seeing in Buncombe County for several years a lot of, they could be visitors who are unfamiliar with our laws, it could be local folks, it could be people having a bad day. But when our yellow buses stop to pick up a child or to drop children off, it's really important that everybody, when they see those flashing lights and that stop arm goes out, that people stop and do not pass the bus on either the left or the right. There are some really harrowing instances of vehicles driving up on curbs, driving through bicycle lanes, and things like that, where there are near misses with children getting off a bus. And I just want to avoid that. And right now, it can take up to 2 years to prosecute and have a violation go through the normal court process. And what we're asking for from Asheville City Schools, and I believe Buncombe County Schools as well, is permission for there to be a civil enforcement option that would be sent out automatically. And so you can get more information about this if you put it on your agenda. It does not prevent criminal enforcement in any way. And that was my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peppy. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak during public comment? All right, thank you all. We appreciate it. Avril, I believe you have a manager's report this evening.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joining us this afternoon via Zoom would be Whitney Christensen, our lobbyist from Warden Smith, and she'll present to you a legislative update. So,
We can't hear you, Whitney.
Rookie mistake. I was on Zoom as if I haven't done this a million times since 2020. I apologize. Thank you for having me this evening, and thank you for pushing the time back as well. I had some legislative meetings at the General Assembly this afternoon for the county and was delayed getting home, so appreciate the accommodation there. I will attempt to share my screen, although I'll admit that this is not my strong suit. but we'll attempt to do that now. All right.
Lillian, I think we could benefit from some more volume on Whitney.
I don't really know how to make it go larger than this. This is something someone younger than me would know how to do. If this works for you all, I'll proceed from here.
Whitney, you can start the slideshow. If you do that, it would hide your preview slides
Okay.
across the top.
I've done this before, I just don't remember how to
There
do
you
it.
go.
Tim said he thought it would be better for me to do it this way. I think Tim overestimated how good lawyers are with technology. I really don't know how to do this, so I'll just proceed with it like this. I don't have anything exciting on the bottom of my screen that I think would get in your way or would cause a distraction, but here is the county's legislative agenda for the most recent biennium. Starting at the top, we have local government recovery and stabilization grants. This was obviously a very top priority for the county going into the biennium, particularly after Tropical Storm Helene ravaged the area. We do have good news there, and I'm sure this is old news to most of you, but maybe news to the public. House Bill 47, which was passed in March of 2025, included $55 million for local government infrastructure grants. We're really pleased to see that. Also, the first relief bill in 2024 created a $100 million local government cash flow loan program, of which I believe Buncombe County was the largest recipient. And then House Bill 1012, also from 2025, so that was the second relief bill that was passed in June, added $51.5 million more to that program. That was a Senate priority, and we were pleased to see that they went out in that negotiation with the House. We've had many meetings about forgiveness for this funding. I can tell you with confidence that House and Senate leaders are aware that that's a priority of ours and all of the other local government recipients. What we've been told consistently is that forgiveness is going to come down to allowing enough time to pass for reimbursements from FEMA to be a moot point because the state really doesn't want to interfere with any FEMA reimbursements. But just last year, they reimbursed some Florence and Matthew grant programs or loan programs that they enacted, and we're hopeful that they will do that here as well. Next up on the county's agenda, we had permanent housing solutions for displaced people. This was obviously a very important priority of the county's as well. And we did see two legislative items on that front that came through in the two Helene relief bills from 2025. First, in House Bill 47, which was just the second bill passed of the entire year, they were quick to get to work on this. There was $120 million allocated specifically for the home reconstruction and repair program. This also directed the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency to partner with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency to address and meet unmet homeowner needs. And then in the second relief bill of 2025, House Bill 1012, an additional $10 million was provided to the Housing Finance Agency for repair and preservation of existing rental units in affected counties. And so while these things were both very positive, just one notable gap that I wanted to flag is that Governor Stein had requested $50 million for affordable housing development and $10 million for homeless stabilization programs, and neither of those were included in any of the three Helene relief bills that came out of the General Assembly. Next, additional support for emergency watershed protection program. This is a USDA program, as I'm sure you're aware, but there were some opportunities to improve the amount of matching funding that was available through state efforts. No progress to report on here, sadly. I think it's the only slide that we don't have great progress to report on in the PowerPoint tonight. But the General Assembly has funded related initiatives through the Stream Restoration Assistance Program, or STRAP. Next, legislation delaying equalization of public service companies. We spent a good deal of time on this last year, more than I would ever want to count, and did make some progress, and particularly on the Senate side and through negotiations with Duke on this. but ultimately, the legislation that would have delayed the financial impacts of equalization to the county in 2025 was not enacted. With that being said, we're actively working on this topic in the Senate and the House. I had a House meeting on this about an hour ago, but we'll get to that in another slide. And happy to answer questions about that if you guys have questions about the nuances of that program, although Tim Love is really the expert. I'm just his sidekick on that one. So another priority of the counties was additional resources for mental and behavioral health. Sadly, although that was funded, there was some funding for that in 2024. It was very limited. There was $25 million for mental health crisis supports in the first relief bill, which I think came in October or November of 2024. But the 2025 legislation largely deferred those needs and kind of punted to the Health and Human Services budget. Then, of course, we didn't have a state budget, so there wasn't an HHS budget, but have not seen funding for those initiatives in the 2025 Helene bills, but there's still an opportunity for them to be funded in the 2026 Helene relief bill that's underway currently. So a big priority of the counties has always been, in each of the agendas that I've worked on with you, additional state funding for state employee salaries. We also talked about funding for teacher salaries, and those, good news and bad news there. We have had a budget impasse for 317 days, I think, so have not had a state budget in the time since we created this agenda, which is unfortunate. The good news, though, House and Senate leadership held a joint press conference last Tuesday to announce that the budget impasse has now been cleared, is now behind us, and that deals have been reached related to state employee salaries and teacher salaries. For teachers in North Carolina, just to start out, the deal, which isn't on paper anywhere, you won't be able to find it on the General Assembly website. We were just given high-level details in this press conference, but do have very good reason to believe that the deal that they announced is the deal that we'll see in legislation in mid-June. But for teachers, those average raises in the current deal are at 8%. Again, that's an average. They are weighted more heavily towards early career teachers, so you'll see higher than 8% for early career teachers. They're lower for late career teachers. I'm not sure what the strategy was there. It might be a hiring strategy. But they also proposed increasing starting teacher pay to $48,000 in North Carolina, which I think is about a $2,000 bump. For state employees, the current budget deal proposes an average 3% raise. Again, that's an average, so it's going to vary employee to employee. But also a bonus in conjunction with that raise of $1,750, so $1,750 for any state employee making under $65,000, and a $1,000 bonus for any state employee making over $65,000. And an important detail here is that these raises are retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year, which is really great news for those employees. So hope to see that become law mid-June. Business recovery loans and grants is another item that the county advocated for. We've seen a lot of good progress on this in the Helene relief bills. House Bill 1012 included $60 million for business grants. Those grants are administered by the Department of Revenue, and it's important to note they're grants rather than loans, which is a distinction from the local government program. It was a House item. The House pushed for that pretty heavily. The Senate later struck it out of House Bill 1012, but at the 11th hour it was added back. So we're pleased to see that become law. I know that was important to you all. Also, we advocated for water and sewer system expansion and redundancy. This is something that we were even lobbying for pre-Helene, and we did specifically continue to advocate for that after the storm, but obviously there were some needs that had become higher priority and more time sensitive after the storm. And so in a way, I think this one kind of became overshadowed by some of the more emergent needs. But I will just say that the General Assembly has invested about $685 million through House Bill 1012. And again, this was federal money. This wasn't state money, but it was appropriated through House Bill 1012 in the second Helene relief package for water, sewer, and drinking water projects. So we also specifically advocated for state funding for a new ambulance apparatus. This was one that was lost during the storm. We didn't receive that funding, and to my knowledge, there were no individual earmarks in the Helene relief packages for specific vehicles that were lost, which was unfortunate, but we did have many meetings about this. Next on the list, reimbursement for local school consolidation study. We spent a lot of time talking about this in 2024 and 25. I think we had some headwinds originally, but over the course of last year, I remember members of your Senate delegation were advocating for this. I think there was a provision for this possibly included in one of the budget deals that failed last year. I remember working on it with Senator Daniels' office, but ultimately with no budget enacted, I think that's where this one fell, unfortunately. We've talked about the Helene relief bills a bit already, but just wanted to give you this high-level recap so you can see some of the things that were funded in addition to those that aligned with the county's legislative agenda. And backing up further beyond this slide, there was an original Helene relief package approved in 2024, a month or so after the storm. I think it was right at 30 days after the storm hit. These two bills that I've summarized here were the 2025 bills. And so House Bill 47 was approved in March. It was the second bill they approved of the entire year. It was a really big priority of both chambers and both parties. It appropriated $524 million. And you can see the items that were included there. $120 million for home construction and repair, $100 million for private road and bridge repairs. We think there's more to come on that, by the way, in the final relief package that they're working on now. $55 million for small business infrastructure grants, $20 million for debris and sediment removal, and $10 million for volunteer fire departments and nonprofit repairs. And then to follow that up, a couple months later, June of last year, House Bill 1012 appropriated even more funding, about $700 million, which included an additional $75 million for private bridge and road repairs, bringing the total to $175 at that point. $70 million for local government capital repairs, $64 million for school reconstruction and repair, another $51.5 million for local government cash flow loans. Remember, originally they had put $100 million into that program. So now that total is $151.5, and then $18 million for volunteer fire department and EMS grants. Looking at additional legislative items that we've been working on, and this one we were successful on. We were so excited, to get this across the finish line because it was a lot of work on the advocacy side spent on this last year. But we looked to modify Article 39 just temporarily following the storm to allow more sales tax revenue to be used in the classroom. We had this legislation in 3 different bills over the course of session. Had to continue to move it several times, but ultimately this became law, and we were pleased to see that money move back to the classroom where it could be put to its best use. And again, that's temporary and will sunset in 2027. We also have worked tirelessly to restore Buncombe County's eligibility for the state salary supplement for teachers. Had a meeting on this today, actually, and feel really upbeat about it for 2026. Senator Lee, who represents New Hanover County, has been tremendously helpful on this. Senator Daniel and Senator Mayfield as well, as your House members have all helped us on this. But essentially, there's a line that's drawn in state statute based on county real estate values that is intended to separate intended to separate Wake and Mecklenburg counties from the other 98 counties in terms of eligibility for this salary supplement for teachers. And as real estate values increase, some counties, including Buncombe and now New Hanover and Guilford and a handful of others, have become inadvertently excluded from this benefit, which leaves the counties to pick up the costs, or in some counties, the teachers don't receive this benefit. And so we have worked more than once to get this line moved for the county successfully. And this year, I think we're in a good spot to do that too. Had great momentum to do it last year, but this is usually done in the budget, and there was not a state budget. But feel really good about this, including, as recently as today, we had a meeting with the top Senate appropriator on it. Also, spent a lot of time on the House property tax reform proposals. This committee began meeting last December to talk about ways to overhaul North Carolina's property tax statutes and to really make some fundamental and core changes to how North Carolina local governments generate revenue. The committee, I will applaud them for being very deliberate and thorough and methodical. They had, 3 and 4 hour meetings once a month from December where they heard from every possible expert on this topic. The House committee ultimately produced 4 bills that they were proposing that would, make various reforms to how property tax is collected Two of them were related to hospitals and hospital loopholes and how hospitals are using like nuances in state statute to avoid paying some of their property taxes. One was related to a loophole that private developers are using when they link up with affordable housing developers to claim affordable housing exemptions. And then the last was a proposed ballot referendum for a constitutional amendment to impose a levy limit on taxes in our North Carolina Constitution. Ultimately, the hospital lobby came out swinging on the two hospital items, and they were tabled. And so right now, they were never introduced. They were drafted but not introduced. And then the levy limit proposal is moving. It's moving today, actually. I think it was in committee a few minutes ago, and is very likely, in my opinion, to end up on the ballot this November. The affordable housing loophole, which would generally be a positive for most local governments in terms of revenue, is, I'm sorry about that, is moving, but maybe not at the pace that the levy limit bill is moving, but we expect to see that become law. And then last but not least, the Senate, not to be outdone by the House, has had their own working group on property tax reform. It was a very different conversation there. It was not made public. Their meetings were private. It was just 4 senators. And what they ultimately recommended was a 1-year moratorium on any revaluations in counties that were scheduled to do revaluations in 2026. And the practical impact of that when you introduce a bill on that topic in May of that calendar year is that all of the counties that would be impacted by it were already well on their way through their budget process and completing their reappraisals. And so practically speaking, that legislation is a big headache. Buncombe is unfortunately one of the counties included in the legislation as it currently stands. I don't want to overshare, but we're working very closely, including again just this afternoon, with legislators on a potential solution to that one. But that is the end of my presentation in terms of your agenda items and the few additional items that I wanted to touch on. Happy to chat about anything else you want to cover, but I do think we covered the state budget too. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Whitney, thank you. It's good to see you, and thanks for all the work that you were doing on our behalf, especially today leading up to this evening's presentation. We really appreciate it. Commissioners, are there questions for Whitney?
Whitney, this is Parker. I just wanted to ask you if there's anything you could tell us about the framework or expected items that might show up in a 2026 Helene recovery bill.
That's a great question. So we've had a couple meetings on it. We do think private bridge and road repair will be a big item. I don't think we'll see local government loans again. I've asked about that. I don't think it's going to repopulate. There has been some talk about affordable housing funding coming into that in a stronger way than maybe was seen in the past 2 bills. One disappointing thing I will note, last session, repeatedly, leadership from both chambers promised that the final Helene relief bill from 2026 would include about 500 to 600 million in funding, and that had been specifically set aside for this. And in all of my meetings on this topic this year, we're hearing the number 400. They're kind of backing off that total spend. And the reason we keep getting, and this is from Western North Carolina legislators who have been, leading the charge on Helene relief, is that Western North Carolina hasn't spent all of the money they've been given yet. And so, they don't want to spend too much at once. But then at the same time, they'll say that it's the last relief bill. So I wish I had more specifics at this point. I think most of the folks working on it have been holed up in a room working on the budget deal that was announced last Tuesday. But hopefully more details will emerge now that the budget items are at least agreed upon at a high level.
Thank you.
Other questions for Whitney? All right, Whitney, thanks again. We really appreciate you joining us. And again, thank you for all your hard work that you're doing on our behalf in Raleigh.
You're welcome. It's great to see you all.
End of report.
End of your report. Thank you, Avril. All right, we have our presentations this evening, and Commissioner Ball is going to present Older Americans Month proclamation to Billy Breeden.
County of Buncombe Proclamation, Older Americans Month, May 2026. Whereas Buncombe County is home to 82,160 older Americans over the age of 60 who contribute their time, wisdom, and life experiences to our community, thus benefiting the economic, social, and cultural well-being of Buncombe County. And whereas communities benefit when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds are welcomed, included, and supported. And whereas the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners and partner agencies recognize the need to create an age-friendly community that provides the services and supports older Americans need to thrive and live independently for as long as possible. And whereas Buncombe County works to build an even better community for our older residents by planning programs that encourage participation and promote social connections in work, civic, and community life, ensuring activities are responsive to individual needs and preferences, increasing access to services that support aging in place, preventing abuse, neglect, and exploitation, embracing the diversity of older Americans in our community, emphasizing the positive views of aging, and acknowledging that all of us are aging. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners proclaims May 2026 as Older Americans Month in Buncombe County. The 2026 theme, Champion Your Health, highlights prevention, wellness, and personal responsibility as foundations of healthy aging. It encourages all of us to take an active role in managing our health, advocating for ourselves and others, accessing preventative care, and making informed decisions that support independence. We urge every resident to join us to celebrate and recognize the contributions of our older citizens who are redefining what it means to age. By working together to help create an inclusive community and supporting our older residents to age well in Buncombe County, we can build a healthier and meaningful future for all. This 19th day of May 2026, signed by our Chair, Amanda Edwards, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners.
On behalf of 29% of Buncombe County's population, that is 82,160 residents aged 60 and above, age-friendly Buncombe County, and aging services providers throughout the county, we thank you for recognizing Older Americans Month and recognizing the positive contributions that older adults make to our community. And all of us are aging, and community supports for older adults benefits people of all ages. And I would like the committee to know that, the commission to know that the age-friendly action plan has been updated. This is Buncombe County's aging plan. And if you would like more information about the age-friendly action plan, I would be happy to come and do a presentation at a future meeting. Lastly, I wanted to let you know of an upcoming local aging conference that Age-Friendly Buncombe County is hosting in collaboration with Givens Communities. This is the second Age-Friendly Summit, and the theme is Health Span Matters, Thriving Across the Years. So this conference will be held on Thursday, June 4th, from 8 to 4:30 at the Doubletree Biltmore on Hendersonville Road. And we're honored and pleased to have Commissioner Chair Edwards deliver the opening remarks like she did at the first conference. And this conference will celebrate aging and will provide information about how we can all live healthier as we live longer lives. And there will be vendors there that support older adults and unpaid caregivers. And breakfast and lunch is included, and I invite you to join us. Thank you.
Thank you all. We appreciate your good work. We do have a surprise proclamation this evening. Sarah, will you join me at the podium, please? Proclamation, Professional Clerks to the Board of County Commissioners Week. Whereas it is imperative to the democratic process that a well-informed citizenry participates in the operation of their local government. Whereas the office of the clerk to the board provides the communication link between the citizens, the local governing body, administrative departments, and local government partners. Whereas the position of clerk is one of the oldest in local government, dating at least to biblical times, and whose term has long been associated with the written word, so that it is modern-day clerks are official records keepers for their counties. Whereas North Carolina law requires boards of commissioners to appoint a clerk serving at the pleasure of the board. Whereas the clerk's most significant statutory duties concern the preparation, filing, and safeguarding of local government records, but the statutory duties constitute only a portion of what the clerk actually does. Whereas the clerk plays a vital role in county government and provides the written record needed to ensure that the board is accountable to the county's citizens and to other public and private officials. Whereas the clerk is sometimes described as the hub of the wheel in local government because of the central work that the clerk plays in government's communications network. Whereas as local government becomes larger and more complicated, the clerk's role as a professional provider of information to citizens, government officials, and the media becomes more and more important. Whereas clerks have the opportunity to participate in the North Carolina Association of County Clerks, a very active professional association of public officials dedicated to improving the professional competency of clerks through regular regional and statewide educational opportunities. Whereas in cooperation with the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Government and International Institute of Municipal Clerks, the North Carolina Association of County Clerks helps to sponsor a nationally recognized examination-based certification program that culminates in receipt of the designation of Certified Municipal Clerk. Whereas, in addition, the North Carolina Association of County Clerks and the School of Government sponsor state certification programs leading to the designation of North Carolina Certified County Clerk, as well as opportunities for certified clerks to obtain the continuing professional education needed to remain state certified or to earn an advanced master clerk designation. Whereas, in addition to conducting education programs, the North Carolina Association of County Clerks also directly assists clerks on the job with mentoring programs to provide guidance to assist clerks in their day-to-day work. Whereas clerks, upon their own initiative, participate in these certification and education programs, including annual meetings of the North Carolina Association of County Clerks and the Institute of Municipal Clerks, which not only improve the operation of their office, but through their achievements and awards bring favorable publicity to the counties in which they serve. Whereas clerks are involved at the state level as well as in potential legislative and other matters of interest. Whereas although clerks work for the county boards of commissioners, they truly provide a public service. Now therefore be it resolved that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners hereby recognize the week of May 3rd through May 9th as Professional Clerks to the Board of County Commissioners Week and extends appreciation to Buncombe County Clerk to the Board, Sarah Gross Skarnecchia, and to all county clerks across North Carolina for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the county they represent. On this day, May 19th, 2026, signed by Amanda Edwards, Chair of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. Sarah, thank you for the work that you do on our behalf every day, all the behind-the-scenes work that nobody knows that you do. We truly, truly appreciate you. Thank you for letting us surprise you. All right, we move to our U.S. Forest Service update. Jennifer Barnhart with the U.S. Forest Service and others are here to provide more information. It's good to see all of you. Please join us.
Hi, Commissioners. Thanks for having us. I'm James Malonis. I'm the Forest Supervisor for the National Forest in North Carolina. So we manage in the mountains here, the Nantahala and Pisgah, over 1 million acres of some of the most visited national forests in the country. So I just want to thank the county, all of our state partners that have worked with us since the storm in the response, immediate response and recovery. We couldn't do it without our county partners. We know how important these forests are to the overall economy of Western North Carolina and Buncombe County in particular, how important it is for clean water, wildlife, recreation, all the things we love about Western North Carolina. As we go from response to long-term recovery, we've worked a lot with our partners at the state level, local partners in restoring our trails, restoring our forests and watersheds that were damaged during the storm. And my colleague Jen will give some specific updates on projects here in Buncombe County. As we go into long-term recovery, we're really focused on recreation, our trails, recreation sites, roads and bridges, restoring forest and reducing fire risk with all the blowdown that we have, as well as that long-term watershed restoration that's needed across the forest. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jen to give you some specifics. So thanks.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, James. Appreciate that overview. First, I just want to say thank you so much for having us here. It's really important for the Forest Service as we're the community's neighbors and we're part of the community. So we want to make sure folks know what's going on with their national forest, that I know folks we love and why a lot of folks are here because they love the mountains, they love the forest. And in particular, thank you, Commissioner Wells, for inviting me to come and speak tonight. I do appreciate that. So tonight, I'll specifically talk about Buncombe County and what some of the impacts, but more so of what have we been able to do successfully, where we're at with recovery with the U.S. Forest Service lands in Buncombe County. So as we all know, right, Hurricane Helene or any tropical storm doesn't know anything about boundaries, right? So it's going to do what it wants to do wherever. So yes, a lot of the same catastrophic impacts that y'all have sustained yourselves, so has the forest throughout Western North Carolina. So tens of thousands of downed trees, lots and lots of impacts to our watersheds, as well as our roads and our trail systems, close to 900 miles of just our roads severely impacted. So access, right, that's a key thing to our community members, as well as for our firefighters to get in there for fuels reduction. Again, we're going to be able to see what have we done since Helene hit. So in particular, just to give you all a context of understanding Western North Carolina and particularly the Pisgah National Forest, there are 3 different ranger districts that are across the Pisgah. So there's 500,000 acres for the Pisgah National Forest. In particular, in Buncombe County, it is split between the Appalachian Ranger District, which is me. So that's going to be more of your northeastern portion of the county, and that's going to be Big Ivy, the Shope Creek, the Ox Creek area, and then down in the southern eastern portion, that's the Pisgah Ranger District, and that's the other district ranger, Dave Casey, and so he manages the Bent Creek area. Particularly tonight, a lot of that damage unfortunately happened on the Appalachian Ranger District, more so than the Pisgah, so there's less updates on Bent Creek, but shortly I'll just give a little input on that. So in particular for Bent Creek, because that is a really beloved and heavily used trail system. So some work has been done on the Bent Creek trails, but there'll be more continuing work for that trail system, particularly partnering with Pisgah Area Sorba. And then they are also working on Lake Powhatan's campground, connecting that to the Asheville sewer system. So those are really the 2 big things for Bent Creek. The rest of it, it's going to be really focused on the Big Ivy area, Shope Creek and Ox Creek. So for us, right, you got to figure out priorities, just like everyone else. There's so many things to do. So where do you focus first, especially once you have Helene, we have response, and then you're going into recovery. So in particular, fuels and debris removal, emergency responder access, and reopening trails, roads, and rec sites. As James mentioned, we know very much so that local economics, particularly in Buncombe County and surrounding areas, tourism is a huge component. So not only for safety for our community members, but also access for folks that are visiting, but also for the local community members here tonight and that live around this area. So I'll hit on Shope Creek first. So we'll talk about where's some progress there. That's the East Asheville portion of the National Forest. And The biggest thing there that we've done is fuels reduction. That was the big, most catastrophic, unfortunate event for that Choke Creek area. A lot of folks use that in East Asheville. It's very easy to get to, heavily populated area as well as homes. And so looking at the amount of sheer down trees that we had in Choke Creek, in particular, that's where we started moving on. So for us, the U.S. Forest Service, that is, in our wheelhouse is to work on when it comes to using our tools in forestry, like a salvage sale. So removing any down trees on the ground. So we were able to remove 50% of the fuels in there. That's about 89 acres treated. And we're able to improve the emergency access for search and rescue, which is key. And then looking at improvements for road crossing improvements and just prepping and getting ready for revegetation. We also planted just this year in the spring, 2026, replanted, started reforestation in there. So there's a process, right? Removing the fuels. Can we go in and look at if there's opportunities for planting in there? Also access back to the public. So Choke Creek is like a model, I'd say, that really hits on all these different parts. So recently we did reopen just the parking lot and the roads in the Choke Creek area just last month in April. The remaining of the area still remains closed. We're working through, as you'll see, trail system planning, and there's still a lot of trees down on the ground. So we're still working through that through a lot of public collaboration and meetings, in particular on that trail component. And before we get into just some of those snapshots of our fuels reduction, I did want to give a shout out. I was really excited that Commissioner Ball, as well as Commissioner Wells and Chair Edwards was able to come out in person to see Choke Creek and joined us with the NC Forest Service, as well as super shout out to our Chief Kelly at Riceville. He's been super helpful for us, particularly around Choke Creek area and the collaboration, the meetings, and also they support, obviously, with the search and rescue out there. So in particular, when it comes to fuel reduction, a lot of folks think, oh, you're removing trees. Yes, we are removing trees that are dead and down. Doesn't mean we go in and take out any tree that is there. So we do have best management practices that we follow, not just for salvage sales, for any sale that we have, including a green sale, like a timber sale. But in particular here, this is where some of the pictures that do show leave trees. So anywhere where we feel like there would be potential survival, those trees were left. And even if sometimes they're leaning and they still were rooted, those were left as well. We had already done some restoration work in here previously before Helene hit, particularly trying to recruit oak back into this forest area. And again, that's where we're back to square one. Also working on our roads, protecting the watershed as the road goes into that system. A lot of funding went into helping that area start to recover more there. In particular, I won't go over in all these different bullets, but when it comes to our trail planning, that area had 21 miles of user-created trails in that system, and we had already been looking at doing that before Helene hit. We had already started doing some looking at what trails could be resilient that we want to keep in there, and some areas were not, may have impacts to watersheds, for instance. And so we're still picking that same thing up now. The difference is we've gained a heck of a lot more partners that are at the table that aren't only going to help us now with the planning, but design, implementation, but also maintaining that area. So we're really excited to have local community members involved, as well as other partners we've been working with in the past. And there's been a lot of opportunities, many community meetings, and then particular meetings just on the trail system itself. We want to make sure to keep the character, but also understand the different uses that are happening out there at Choke Creek. Like I said, super easy area for folks to get to in Asheville to spend some time outside. Good pictures here of the oak and pine plantings. That's what we would have done in particular this last spring. So we've been able to start getting our reset happening in there and forestry. Again, the fuels had been removed up to 50%, but arranged the fuels in a way that over the next couple years composition should be able to break down those fuels even more. And then another part of the stool, I call it the four-legged stool. So you're looking at your forestry, you're looking at your fire and fuels, silviculture, that's what you do in terms of it's an art and science of restoration for your forest. And the fourth leg of that is your invasive species treatment. So treatment has been starting to take place there. We do have our botanist that's involved in partners that are experts when it comes to that component. Moving over to Big Ivy, so the portion up into Barnardsville, that would be recent progress. We were able to reopen those trails back in 2025. There are some limitations where folks are able to drive into the very beginning portion of Coleman Boundary and have to park, but they can still, ride bikes, hike up into horse ride, but many, many thousands of hours to be able to clear out those trails and get that ready. But the biggest challenge was the entrance of Big Ivy Coleman Boundary was completely washed out. Still has major catastrophic damage to that portion there. But in order to get emergency access back in there, so as access to private residents as well through that area, we do have Temp Repair Road that got put into place, which is now being used also for the public to access to be able to recreate. Ogle Meadows is another part of Big Ivy in the northern part where there's homes up there. So worked on emergency repairs on their roads. And then, continue to do debris removal over at Stony Fork area. And thankfully that bridge over there is not compromised. So that was some good news for once. But Stony Fork Road itself, definitely more catastrophic damages there. Watershed assessments have been completed, so just baseline information from impacts from Helene in that area. And we did remove a small debris area to help with not to have flooding risk in the Walker Creek area. So just some quick pictures of what we're talking about. That's like the entrance of Coleman Boundary when you go into the Big Ivy area. That was the road. So where you think that's where the water is, that's not where the water was pre-Helene. It went right into the road. So we're working through all those components. And then, just showing some of that progress there with our temp road, be able to put in to have access. Other upcoming items for the Big Ivy area. So for this year, we've been focusing on motorized access. Like I said, it's very limited to where you can drive up to. A big portion is, can I get to Douglas Falls, which is another 7 or 8 miles up the road to get to, which is a big driver for locals to be able to go to, but also tourists as well. So looking at how can we get temp repairs done in that road, so motorized access could be reestablished all the way up Big Ivy Road, aka Coleman Boundary Road, and then we'll continue to work on trails and trail work, and then particularly starting in fiscal year 27, we'll be working with federal highways to look at our big picture, the long-term resiliency of road realignment. So when we have another storm, Fred didn't even give us a chance. We had temp repairs done, got motorized access back in there, never got the permanent repairs to be put in there so it's resilient because Helene came in. So we're hoping we'll get that opportunity to be able to do that this time before another storm comes through. We will have public input as part of that long-term big picture realignment that we're trying to look there. But most of all, I just want to emphasize we are very fortunate with the U.S. Forest Service, particularly National Forest of North Carolina. We do have funding for Helene recovery, not just for our infrastructure, but for the whole picture. So even today, I was just spending a lot of time looking at watersheds and prioritization, and our partners that we have the ability that they're funded and they're going to be able to build that capacity for us to do that work is just, wonderful news. But so it's not just about fire and trees and reforestation. It's about all restoration. So, we're looking at watersheds. We're looking at the wildlife habitat components there. It's all integrated, all holistic. That's the key thing there. And then I would say partnerships is key. I've already shouted out, a handful of folks in here, but I'd say in Buncombe County, the other ones, the other Chief Monday in Barnersville, we've worked with that group a lot with Big Ivy area. Unfortunately, Chief Dorsey had passed away, but he also had been a good component or person that we were working with around the Reams Creek area. Particularly, we had the Ox Creek fire last year not long ago. And then we are working with, like, for instance, Carolina Land and Lakes, RC&D. They're doing a lot of the community wildfire protection plans. So being able to see what's going on with wildfire protection for Barnesville, as well in the Swannanoa area. So working with Chief Penland there. So, but if there's ways that we would love to work with y'all. I know that Buncombe County has a lot of the same issues. Not on just like we do on federal land, but on private lands. Again, we do have all knowledge and expertise we're here and really look forward to working with Buncombe County on any of these components that you guys would have questions on the forest, or if there's other expertise you guys are seeking as you're also doing recovery. So thank you so much for letting us be here tonight. Any questions?
Thank you, Jen and James. We appreciate you spending time with us, and I'm sure there's some questions and comments from other commissioners. Go
Yes.
ahead, Commissioner Wells.
Jen and James, first of all, thank you both for your partnership. I mean, you've been great partners before Helene, but just tremendous efforts on behalf of our community since then. So thank you and your entire team. And I attended several of your community meetings that you had there in Riceville and Barnesville, and you do an excellent job of really educating the community and getting their questions answered. So thank you as we continue to go forward, because as you mentioned, there's so many of our homeowners, residents, just, around the peripheral there of the public lands. And so that's really been a challenge. And thank you for everything that you're doing to help and to get people to where they can be back out there and recreate, as you said, because that's very meaningful. They say how important that is for their physical, mental health. And I'm excited about your partnership working on those trails over there in Shope Creek. And there's a lot of community excitement around that. So thank you. We notice and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
I'll just ditto that thank you for your service to this community and all the work you've done since Helene. I did just want to bring up a question about forest fire preparedness. The more we talk about it in this building, the more concerned I get about the fall fire season. And certainly you showed us some efforts to remove fuel from the forest. Is there anything else you could tell us about the level of concern you have, or the efforts that the Forest Service is doing kind of regionally to prepare for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work very closely with the North Carolina Forest Service when it comes to wildland firefighting. So when we think about how we responded after Helene with all the blowdown, there's kind of three main things that we've done. So we did some rapid assessments so we could understand where those areas where we have the most blowdown, the most change conditions that are causing the fire risk. And then number two, we have greatly increased our preparedness during wildfire season in bringing in additional resources to Western North Carolina to support on the Forest Service side as well as the North Carolina Forest Service. So we've brought in a lot more kind of aircraft and other things to help us respond quickly to fires, because we've already seen fires in some of these blowdown areas. And what happens is how we used to be able to fight fires, kind of a lot of times being able to go more directly at that fire. When you have that much blowdown, it makes it much more difficult. So we've seen very good success in bringing in additional resources, and those air resources have made a big difference in being able to jump on those fires quickly. And then the third part of that is the longer-term work to reduce the fuel loading, to reduce that fuels, get prescribed fire back into these forests to play that kind of low-intensity fire that can kind of clear out the brush. And so that's kind of the longer term strategy. So, but we need all of those things in order to respond. Thankfully, we're kind of through our spring fire season, but of course, we're always preparing for the next fire season in the fall.
I'll just note, James, Jen, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. I know you stay incredibly busy. I know, on that note, so many of your staff are red carded and are oftentimes on the front lines fighting those fires. And so just really, really appreciate all the work that you do to steward millions of acres of beloved public lands here. And you talked a little bit about this, but you have such high visitation. I went down to Brevard this weekend, had the chance to camp, and I'm just blown away with the visitation that y'all see and how remarkable the job you do managing those lands with a pretty lean staff. It's pretty incredible the work y'all do. So I know that the community partnerships that you have, whether it be SORBA, Carolina Mountain Club, Pisgah Conservancy, our local fire departments, we really appreciate that partnership and how you empower community groups to be partners in managing public lands. And so just want to elevate, as we've said, how much we greatly appreciate your partnership. And On that note, just for fellow commissioners, I'll flag that I've been in conversations with Sorba and Explore Asheville to find a date coming up we can visit Bent Creek and talk about their continued partnership with the Forest Service and about the future of our regional trail system. So more on that soon, and hopefully we'll get out and have a chance to see firsthand the great work they're doing out there. So just thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, too, for the work that you're doing. And I'm on the governor's committee for Western, for this area, for Helene. And I appreciate really what you've done, because I remember the early photos of where we were and now where we are. It's a big difference. But my question to you is, since the tourism industry contributes so much to our economy, how soon before areas like up around Avery and some of the other counties where they're still not connected, you know, to the parkway and all, do you have any estimate as how long it'll be before we're back to somewhat near normal?
Yeah, so in particular, yeah, definitely the Blue Ridge Parkway and that connection with Yancey, yeah, Yancey County, Avery, Mitchell, and yes, they definitely come down this way then, right? So yeah, so working with Park Service and the Blue Ridge Parkway, their estimate, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're supposed to hit, is by the end of this calendar year, 2026. So that portion up there near, you know, closer to the Burnsville, Yancey County area, that would be completed. So they have had meetings with stakeholders in the last, you know, a month ago, talking about the amount of increased traffic just because the sheer amount of dump trucks that need to go from the Asheville area over there. So yeah, they've really increased how they're going to get that done by that timeline. So I know that that's been messaged out to here for any tourist if they are up on the Blue Ridge Parkway to realize there's slower times of driving just because there is the construction going on. So yeah, that's a high priority from them. And people do ask that question quite a bit. So yeah, hopefully y'all are, yeah, everyone's feeling that relief as that final connection's made by the end of the calendar year.
Thank you.
Again, thank you both. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening and are incredibly grateful for the work that you do, not just for Buncombe County, but for the region. And we think it's really important that you all have the opportunity to showcase the really good work that you're doing, especially in light of Helene recovery. I'm excited to see the work towards Douglas Falls. I think that is one of the things that I hear the most from folks ready to get out. And again, I really appreciate the time that you all took to give us a firsthand tour of Shope Creek and just being able to see that incredible work that you all are doing, as you said that day, with limited staffing too. So your work doesn't go unnoticed by us, and we hope that being here this evening allows others to see just how important the U.S. Forest Service is. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. We're very grateful to be public stewards of all these wonderful lands that y'all enjoy, so we do appreciate it. Yeah, reach out, please, if you end up needing anything or have questions. We appreciate y'all, too.
Thank you so much. Have a great night. Melissa Moore is joining us for our FY26 third quarter financial update. Good evening, Melissa.
Good evening. So this evening's presentation is going to cover the third quarter financial results for the county, the third quarter ending in March, at the end of March. And third quarter represents 75% of our fiscal year. Through the third quarter, the financial results have tracked according to plan. So I will move through the slides quickly. Please feel free to pause me if you have any questions. But everything has been performing as anticipated. So looking at our general fund, your revenues year to date are $384.9 million. This is 87.8% of our amended budget. Looking at your general fund expenditures, spend continues to track appropriately, where we would expect to see things in the third quarter with most functions between 65 and 75% of budget. Your year-to-date actuals are $302.5 million, representing 69% of amended budget. Here is another view of your general fund expenditures by category. Switching over to our solid waste fund, solid waste year-to-date revenues, 10.4 million. This represents 56.4% of their adopted budget. Looking at solid waste expenditures, year-to-date, 10.8 million, representing 58.6% of their expenditures, of their amended budget. Looking at our county capital projects, we're looking at life-to-date actuals of 71.7 million, year-to-date of 11.8 million. Some of the key projects that accumulate the year-to-date expenditures are within our county courthouse renovations, as well as construction on our EMS space. Now switching over to our investment portfolio, our total assets under management are $368.65 million. Our year-to-date investment earnings of $8.1 million. Looking at the diversification of our portfolio, you'll see a strong performance across our government pools. Compared to our 12-month benchmark of 3.85%, the pools have all performed greater than 4%. Looking at a procurement summary, this is reflecting only the third quarter activity. We had purchase orders and contracts, 236 processed for the third quarter. Those equated to $47.5 million. Are there any questions about the third quarter financials?
Thank you, Melissa. I don't have a specific, except just in general for you thinking about, like, was there anything in there that surprised you, either in a positive way or in a way of concern that you think really stood out to you, or did it all just pretty much track as you expected?
Everything is really in tracking according to the plan that the budget team puts together. They continue to monitor projections through the end of the year and continue to really enjoy their detailed analysis on sales tax and tracking where we feel like that'll end at the end of the year. So we continue to stay on plan according to the plan and projections.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, thank you, Melissa. We appreciate the good report. All right, we do have several public hearings this evening, and our first is our CDBG DR, Commercial District Revitalization. Tyler Henry has more information for us. Good evening, Tyler.
Good evening. All right. Good evening, Commissioners. So this is the first public hearing for Buncombe County's Commercial District Revitalization Grant applications under CDBG DR program. Before we open the hearing, I do want to provide a quick overview of the program and share potential project ideas. This program is part of North Carolina's disaster recovery funding following Tropical Storm Helene. Statewide, there is $111 million allocated to commercial district revitalization, with $40 million available in the first round. Individual awards can be up to $10 million, and importantly, there is no local match required. Eligible applicants include local governments and nonprofits working in partnership with local governments. The focus of this program is on physical improvements in commercial areas that experience storm damage, things such as repairs, reconstruction, and mitigation. It does not, however, include funding for workforce programs or direct financial assistance to businesses in its current design. At its core, the goal is to restore economic activity, bringing businesses, customers, and jobs back to the impacted areas. For a project to be eligible, it must meet 3 key federal requirements. First, it must clearly tie back to the impacts of Tropical Storm Helene. Second, it must meet a national objective. And third, it must be eligible activity under HUD guidelines. As staff continues to develop project ideas, we're also grounding our project developments in existing plans and community input, like the Swananoa Small Area Plan, pedestrian planning efforts already underway, and the Helene Recovery Plan. This will help ensure that we're not just reacting to the storm, but advancing projects the community already sees as priorities. I'll now walk through several project concepts currently under consideration. These are in various stages of development, and today's hearing is an opportunity to gather feedback. First is the HMGP Property Activation Project. This project focuses on properties acquired through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. These properties come with restrictions that limit traditional development, but they can still provide community and economic value through uses such as greenways, recreation, or agriculture. This project has been submitted for pre-screening at the state. Next is the Swananoa Commercial Corridor Revitalization Project. This project is more infrastructure focused. It centers on improving pedestrian access along Highway 70 in Swananoa by adding sidewalks between Warren Wilson Road and Whitson Avenue. This project is about more than just walkability, though. It's about connecting people to businesses, improving safety, and making the corridor more attractive for both residents and visitors. It also aligns with broader placemaking goals and helps reduce the risk of long-term commercial decline in the area. It aims to improve access, connectivity, safety, and support local businesses. And as of today, this project is one of 3 across the state that is moving forward to a full application. Next is the Commercial Corridor Remediation and Revitalization Project. This concept addresses a more immediate and visible issue, dealing with storm-damaged properties that haven't been yet remediated. In some cases, post-disaster, there are limited resources for activities such as code enforcement or cleanup, which can leave corridors looking blighted and discourage investment. This project would focus on remediation, debris abatement, and addressing unsafe structures in commercial corridors across the county in unincorporated areas. This project has also been submitted for pre-screening to the state. Other potential concepts that we are considering include stream bank restoration and stabilization within the Swananoa Commercial Corridor. This type of project ties directly into mitigation, reducing future flood risk, while also protecting adjacent commercial areas. It's a good example of how recovery and resilience can be integrated into a single investment. Importantly, I will also note that staff are continuing to evaluate additional approaches, ideas, and unmet needs. These concepts are not final and will evolve based on public input and feasibility. This slide summarizes how each project I've mentioned so far aligns with federal requirements. It ensures each concept clearly ties to storm impacts and meets eligibility criteria. As for the current timeline that we're on and next steps, the NOFO opened on April 6th, and public comment began on May 8th and will remain open until June 5th. 2 public hearings are scheduled, the first one being today, the second one tentatively scheduled for July 21st, and the application deadline is August 4th, although we are have an internal deadline to submit the applications by July 24th. Public engagement is a required and critical part of this process. The county extended the public comment period beyond the 10-day requirement of the grant to ensure opportunity for engagement and to account for the widespread impacts of Helene. All comments become part of the public record and will inform our application process. Comments can be submitted by mail, email, or by phone to the Helene Recovery Office. The comment period remains open through June 5th, and public input directly informs project selections. Before we move to the RBA and open the public meeting, if anyone has signed up for public comment and did not provide any contact information, I would ask that you please do so on your way out so that we may respond to your comments. The requested action for the board is to hold this public hearing, which is a required step to proceed with the application process.
All right, thank you, Tyler. We will go ahead and hold the public hearing and then ask for any additional questions. All right, we will open the public hearing at 6:19 PM. I do not have anyone signed up, but is there anyone here who would like to speak on this issue? All right, there being none, we'll close the public hearing at 6:19 PM. All right, commissioners, are there questions for Tyler? Go ahead, Parker.
I have several questions. First of all, is property acquisition an eligible expense of this category of funds? Do you know that off the top of your head, potentially?
Acquisition is an allowable activity under the grant. However, there is a comparison, and the state will have to balance approval of applications, considering like if the project is only acquisition or if that's merely a part of the project.
Okay. Another question. It was mentioned, I think, on two different your slides, a HUD requirement for low or moderate income prioritization. Is that a census tract thing, or how is that kind of measured?
Primarily through the census tract. So
Okay.
we not only look at the exact census tract where a project may be taking place, but we also have to look at the surrounding census tracts in the area to help provide justification for location of projects.
Okay. My final thought or comment, is very supportive of sidewalks on Highway 70. That's a over-engineered, very dangerous corridor that never should have been designed and built that way. And maybe this is the only opportunity we're going to get to kind of help mitigate some of that. But I also wonder if, and this is easy for me to sit here and say, but I wonder if, there's parts of downtown Swannanoa, quote unquote, like Whitson Avenue or Park Street, where you see post-Helene small businesses popping up kind of organically. If there's an application around those kind of streets or corridors that we could seek to enhance that or help those small businesses only grow from here, that would be of interest to me in terms of like another optional application.
Absolutely. I will also say that part of the reason why we selected Whitson Avenue is for that very reason. Also, the county has applied and received a grant from the state to look at Whitson Avenue and provide sidewalk in that area, in that village area. And so we're wanting to connect to where that is as the starting point and then continue as far as we can.
That's great. I guess I just mean, is there other stuff we could do in addition to sidewalks, I guess would be my thought. So, thank you.
Congratulations on being chosen as the commercial corridor revitalization going on to the full application. You said that's one of 3 across the state so far?
Yes, ma'am, so far.
Well, good. And then, so with the other ones, you're kind of phasing in the different requests? Like, there's more than one bite at the apple, basically, is what I'm saying.
So far, there is, like I mentioned, there's 111 million so far for the entire bucket, 40 million for this first round. I'm not sure what the total amount is requested from the other 2, but as of right now, we are the only one in Buncombe County, like no other municipality has submitted yet, and no other nonprofit has submitted. And then the other 2 counties, well, there's one project existing in Yancey County and one in Caldwell County.
The Commissioner Wells, are you done? Okay. Tyler, thank you for this information and for all your work on it. Just for clarification, I'm sorry if I missed this. So tonight is our first public hearing on this. Public comment will close on June 5th. And then the public hearing number 2, will that be here during a commission meeting as well, or where will that be? Because I know that the Swannanoa community has been very active and doing awesome work of coming together to plan for the future. So I'm hoping they'll have an opportunity to share their insights and input as well. But where will that second public hearing be on July 21st?
That would be part of the schedule for the regular meeting for commissioners. And then we're also, like you mentioned, that the public comment period is open until June 5th. We will also be notifying with proper notice prior to that public hearing as well, and doing any reach out that we can between now and then for any feedback in the area.
Okay, great. So the public has another opportunity, not just through public comment, but being back here on the 21st. And then our team will have a quick turnaround of the 24th to incorporate any last minute input and get it submitted. So thank you so much for all your work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's a great question, Commissioner Ball, and I think we can also help push that information out to the residents across the county, particularly in Swannanoa as well, to make sure that they're commenting. So I think any way that we can help augment what CAPE and our staff are doing to get that information out is a great thing. Are there other questions?
I just want to include that county staff have done amazing in reaching our community out in Swannanoa. So I'm excited to see what comes of this. And can I make the motion?
No action this evening.
Oh.
This is the first step. We'll have some additional.
I'm just excited.
I know, that's great. We're excited too. We all are already. So yes, this evening was just our public hearing, and then we'll follow the next steps. Are there any final questions for Tyler? All right, Tyler, thank you so much. We appreciate all the work that you and all the staff are doing on this.
Thank you very much.
Great news. We do have a second public hearing this evening, and that is on the budget. And John Hudson, our budget director, is joining us along with our county manager.
Good evening.
Good evening, John.
Commissioners, we are here tonight for a public hearing on the recommended budget for fiscal year 2027. This is the last step in our budget process before adoption. We've discussed the community's expectation to return to some normalcy after Helene. There's also economic uncertainty. The worst inflation in decades is driving costs, and the need is there to invest in our capital infrastructure. As our local economy continues recovery from Helene, with our unemployment rate returning to before storm levels, we're projecting sales tax and occupancy tax above what was budgeted. However, there is broader ambiguity as the Iran conflict drives fuel and energy costs and inflation begins tracking back up again. While there has been recent talk of passing a state budget, that has still not yet occurred. We also see multiple proposals to change property tax laws that we heard about earlier in our legislative update, to include capping the tax rate and repealing our recent appraisal. After being delayed by Helene, Buncombe County had to conduct a reappraisal as required by law, as we were in excess of the sales assessment ratio compliance. This reappraisal, 5 years after the last one, saw a tax base growth of 43%, which produced a revenue-neutral tax rate of 39.22 cents per $100 of assessed value. This budget has $483.2 million of revenue, with the three largest sources being 70% property tax, 10% intergovernmental revenues, and 10% sales tax. Our budget is appropriated by function. The largest function is education at 28%. This is followed by public safety at 22%, human services at 21%, general government at 15%, debt at 6%, interfund transfers 3%, cultural and recreational 3%, economic and physical development is 2%. As provided during the recommended budget presentation, this is the expenditure budget by strategic priority, with education receiving the largest portion of the budget, followed by public safety and then community health. This brings us to the fiscal year 27 recommended general fund budget of $485,055,095, with the tax rate recommended to increase 4.3 cents above revenue neutral to 43.52 cents per $100 of assessed value. This budget is balanced with a $1.9 million appropriation of fund balance. At 4.3 cents above the revenue neutral rate, the recommended rate of 43.52 cents would increase the annual property tax of a median value home in Buncombe County by $192 or $16 a month. So what investments does the property tax make? Property tax is approximately 84% of our unrestricted revenue. After we assign specific revenues to departments, these are the pennies that support the functions, with education coming in at 14.6 cents of the tax rate, 34%, followed by public safety, 24% at 10.33 cents, and human services at 6.47 cents. The 14.6 cents of the tax rate for education is an investment in our local current expense for the two K-12 school systems, operating expenses for AB Tech, and a transfer for early childhood education funding. The 10.33 cents of the tax rate for public safety funds the sheriff's office and detention center, emergency services, 911, regional training for police, fire, and emergency medical services, as well as justice services and IT support for public safety systems. The 6.47 cents funding human services is supplemented by over $44 million of dedicated revenue from federal and state sources, as well as public health fees, and delivers Medicaid and SNAP benefits to eligible households, social work services to protect vulnerable populations, public health services, food and lodging and well and septic inspections, animal sheltering, and veteran services. The 5.94 cents for general government functions supports the county's front-facing efforts to include administrative services of county management, legal, budget, finance, and human resources, data analytics, communication and public engagement, assessing property and collecting taxes, maintenance and repair of all county properties and assets, purchase and maintenance of vehicles, oversight of our capital projects, public records, and conducting elections. 1.54 cents funding economic and physical development function is an investment in planning, agriculture and land resources, and air quality, as well as transfers for economic development incentives, transportation, conservation easements, and affordable housing. The 1.53 cents funding cultural and recreational function is an investment in parks and libraries and matches the TDA grant for the Anchor Recreation Destination. The 3.11 cents to meet our debt service obligation includes debt service for our 2022 general obligation bonds for affordable housing and open space, as well as county capital projects such as the Swan Noah EMS space, the Fleet and General Services Complex, and solar projects on schools and public buildings. We provide an increase to AB Tech of the unrestricted revenue growth rate, funding them at $8,660,222. With the adoption of a school funding formula in February, our K-12 schools are funded for local current expense at $128.3 million, an increase of $11.1 million over last year. Asheville City Schools receives an additional $17 million in funding through their supplemental and associated sales tax. $254,000 of education support includes school special projects, the Irwin Career Academy, and Kayla interns, and returning funding to Asheville Museum of Science. Regarding our investments in personnel, consistent with the personnel ordinance, the two-year average of the Consumer Price Index, this budget recommends a cost of living adjustment for county employees calculated at 2.71%. After adding only one position last year, this budget supports an investment in personnel of 32 new positions across all 5 functions and brings in 6 positions from the Air Quality Fund as that agency becomes a county department. Onto our capital investments and vehicles. 11 capital projects are recommended to be debt funded at a total of $38.3 million. None of these projects will have a financial impact on the general fund in fiscal year '27 and will only be reflected in debt payments once we have gone out to debt in a future issuance for those projects as they begin work. 6 PAYGO projects are recommended at a total of $1.6 million and will be funded by a one-time appropriation of fund balance and savings from prior closed projects. 62 vehicles are recommended, along with 3 remounts of ambulances. These will be debt funded, with the exception of leased vehicles for the HHS pool and permits and inspections vehicles, which will use restricted permits revenue fund balance. Community investments are budgeted at $11 million, restoring full funding for affordable housing and strategic partnerships grants. Additionally, there are $2.3 million of other grant funding that the commissioners will approve spending for with the budget adoption. With the consolidation to a single fire tax district, there are 2 special taxing districts. The recommended tax rate for the Asheville City Schools District is the revenue-neutral rate of 8.14 cents per $100 of assessed value, which, along with the sales tax for that district, will generate roughly $17 million for the school system over and above the local current expense provided by the county. If the consolidated fire district had existed before this year, it would have a rate of 9.19 cents per $100 of assessed value to generate the revenue for all 20 prior districts with natural growth. While the request from departments totaled $74.2 million, this would have been a 56% change in that tax rate. The recommended tax rate is 11.73 cents per $100 of assessed value, which is 2.54 cents above what would have been revenue neutral, generating $63 million. These are the recommended tax rates. The total of all annual funds in the fiscal year 2027 recommended budget is $697,129,776. Posted with this evening's agenda are the fiscal year 2027 recommended budget in brief, the fiscal year 2027 fee schedule, and the link to the interactive Budget Explorer. The next step is to conduct a public hearing on the budget, and then a public hearing on economic development allocations, address any needed changes, and we will return in 2 weeks to discuss budget adoption.
Thank you, John. Will we do the economic development hearing as well this evening?
Yes.
Okay.
And Commissioners, John mentioned additional changes. As you know, we've been hearing your concerns and we've been talking to staff as well. So between now and June 2nd, all those changes would be made so that what you see, the public hearing is on the manager's recommended budget. No changes to that at this point, but we know that changes will be worked on between now and June 2nd.
Thank you, Avril. All right, we will open the public hearing at 6:37 p.m. and we will begin with Ralph Jones.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll remind the commissioners that you did approve Older American Proclamation earlier. I'll take advantage of that. I'm not sure if this is the right forum, but the 27 budget, $500 million roughly. And I looked at the budget and then I looked at the 26 summary. And I looked at the summary of accomplishments of each department. And when I looked at those accomplishments, I looked at things like, and I'm not singling out anybody to be critical of what their accomplishments were. I was a development engineer. That was my profession for 35 years for the automotive industry. And doing that, I looked at targets. How did you do every day? How did you do every month? What were your targets? How did you do? How did your employees feel about what they did? Did they feel good about going home at the end of the day? And I looked at things like I onboarded a manager. That was my accomplishment. I did an inventory, and I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just saying those are tasks. Those should be relegated to things like a specific duty. A task or a objective would be, how do I maximize the value of my fleet? How do I turn that fleet over and make sure that I'm getting the maximum dollar for every vehicle that I sell? How do I have a target for each department? And how does it relate to the budget? And how does that employee relate to that budget? And how does he have a target or she have a target so that she doesn't or he doesn't go home in the afternoon and feel like she's been stepped on or he's been stepped on? That he can relate to everything that happens within his department to something in the budget. I look at a $500 million budget and I just go, I can't relate. He did a good job of presenting it, but it's nebulous to me. But I can look at a target and I can say that target is red, I need help. I need to inform my boss. It's yellow, I'm working on it, my boss is working with me. It's green and I'm doing everything that I can. And I can go home feeling good about myself. Those are the things that as commissioners, that you should be looking at and implementing. Transparency. How can you put that out to your departments? I'm sorry. But that's my whole spiel. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have additional comments that you didn't get to, you can leave those with the clerk or the manager. Tom Kelly.
Good evening, Commissioners. We're acquainted very well. We've had a lot of conversations over the last 8 months. Just like you, I really didn't know what I was going to come up here to say. I've pondered this. I've thought very hard on it. I've sought a lot of advice. And some things that I want to share with you are practical when it comes to the budget. We have sat in workshops. We've talked as groups. We've talked as individuals. Every 90 seconds, a structure fire occurs. At 18:24 this evening, Station 6 was dispatched to a structure fire. I don't know what the outcome was, but 90 seconds later, somebody else was sent to a structure fire. 3 weeks ago, I went to the National Fire Academy for the annual memorial service for fallen firefighters. We lost a firefighter last summer. We have not even had the 1-year anniversary, and I have been to 2 memorials with our department, back-to-back weekends. Talking to other chiefs and firefighters at these memorials, some of their concerns were around budgets and things they needed. Firefighter safety is our #1 priority. The #1 killer for firefighters 10 years ago was cardiac. We addressed it. We're trying to get healthier. We're doing better with our standards. Right now, the #1 killer is cancer. We are adopting better PPE, but that PPE costs a lot of money. One set of turnout gear, when I first started, was less than $1,000 in 1988. Standards have changed. Turnout gear now costs over $4,000 per firefighter, and it is recommended that every firefighter have 2 sets of gear so that when they do go to a fire, that first set can be decontaminated properly and they have a second set ready to go. We have done everything we can through grants to do so. Last thing I want to say before my time is up is this is National EMS Week. I wish y'all would put that on the record. In 1974, President Ford adopted National EMS Week. And I think that we need to recognize the number of people that show up to your house with no disregard to why you called them. They don't care if you're laying in a pile of pee or poop. They will clean you up and take you to the hospital. They don't care your circumstances. So please recognize your EMS workers for this week when you see them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Paul Benjamin.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, I want to address the budget for '27 and the impact it's going to have on our community. As we know, we are a sanctuary county, and there's a cost factor for that. It first impacts our education. We have increased costs in our schools, impacts our families, and we know that ripple effect impacts our budget. Every dollar item impacts not only, we talked this evening about our seniors and families that are struggling to make ends meet according to the budgetary strains on our economy. So we also want to address the impact on our police and law enforcement. As you know, by speaking to some of our police leaders, most of our officers can't even live in the county. They live 30, 40 miles out because of the cost of living here. And we talk about affordability and housing. Every time we raise the budget, we impact the family, where we're taking a mom out of the home to work, and then that leads into kids that are latchkey kids. And as you know, our youth crime violence is up here in Buncombe County by over 255%. So these are all real world impact. And a concern we also have is using our budget to fund social causes. I know last year or year before, we spent almost $500,000 on the reparation assessment program, which impacts, again, our budget. Those are things that we need to look at, where we're spending a lot of things that are not necessarily to be part of a job of a county, but needs to be back into the faith community and churches that are in the community doing the work and in touch with the families. A lot of impact, when we raise taxes on our businesses, we desensitize businesses from moving into our county. In actuality, if you lower the taxes, we'll attract more businesses here, because the same impact on families, businesses move outside of our county because they're afraid of the tax base, that their employees can't even work here, and it costs them money to live and move in our county. So as families are tightening their budget, I would like for you to look at the budget and see where we can cut costs as families tighten their belts, let our county tighten our belts, and see where we can cut costs and use our private sector and our faith community to address the rest of our budgetary needs, to reduce the taxes, bring more families in that want to move into the county by reducing that tax burden that will impact our family and our businesses and our law enforcement and things that are necessary for our county. Thanks for serving.
Thank you. Erica Swing?
Good evening. I'm concerned about the proposed reduction of the visual arts program at Asheville High and Silsa, and wanted to explain the importance of that program in my children's lives. I have 2 children who have been active in the visual arts department. My son is a junior at Silsa and has taken visual arts classes every year and plans to do the same as a senior. My daughter entered high school knowing that they wanted to go into the arts for a career, and the classes that they took at Asheville High in the visual arts department were important to prepare them for a university-level arts program where they are working towards a Bachelor of Fine Arts. Without the foundation provided by this department, they would not have been prepared for such an education. The greatest impact of these art classes go beyond just their interests. For both of them, when they were struggling with their other academic classes or having at times severe anxiety from other school situations or pressures, the arts department has been a haven of belonging where both have felt seen and heard. The teachers in the art department are the ones that my children gravitate towards for a safe space, and these are the classrooms where they have found a social space with other like-minded students and forming long-term relationships. In addition to a place of belonging, it has given both of them a place where they could exercise their strong creativity and access a very necessary kinesthetic style of learning that allowed both of them to feel successful in a way that traditional academics has not always fully offered. I'm fully convinced that the time in their arts classes has in turn led to improved engagement with the school and better academic performance. Cutting the visual arts position would significantly reduce student access to visual arts courses and limit opportunities for students to continue into advanced art classes. Visual arts teach essential skills students need like communication, creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and problem solving. I respectfully ask the board to preserve the visual arts teaching positions and continue supporting the arts-rich educational opportunities for our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Allen.
Good evening, Honorable Commissioners. It's me again, Matt Allen, here on behalf of the Land of the Sky Association of Realtors. And I promise I'm not going to rehash what I said 2 weeks ago, but I'd be remiss to not take the opportunity to say a couple of additional things related to the budget and to the property tax rate before you vote in a couple of weeks. First thing I wanted to say is please listen to your constituents. In addition to the public comment you've received at the last several meetings, I know that you've received a lot of emails asking you to take a measured approach with the budget and increasing the property tax rate. I know because many of those emails are from my members and other concerned citizens that we have a relationship with. So I know in the past you have been informed by feedback from your constituents, and I ask that you do so in establishing a budget and the property tax rate. In addition to that, I just wanted to say that there's recent precedent from counties that have done reappraisals and establishing a revenue-neutral property tax rate. In fact, just last fiscal year, Cumberland and Cleveland County established rates below revenue neutral, and then you had 4 that did revenue neutral. Admittedly, 23 of the 29 counties last year that did reappraisals did above revenue neutral, but the vast majority of those were pretty minimal in their increase, 2 to 5%. Only 6 counties established a rate as high as what is being considered here in Buncombe. And so I would just ask you, don't follow the lead of those 6 counties, follow the lead of the folks who did revenue neutral, or better yet, Cumberland and Cleveland County. Otherwise, it really will have a dire impact on property owners, and that will seep out and have a negative impact on the local economy and indeed the county as a whole. So thank you for your consideration and time.
Thank you. Kevin Long.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Long. I serve as the Lethality Assessment Program Coordinator at HelpMate. For those of you that don't know, HelpMate is the organization here in Buncombe County that serves survivors of intimate partner violence. I first wanted to extend our thanks, and thank the Justice Services Department commissioners for extending our funding through December 31st for this lethality assessment program. This decision does demonstrate a meaningful commitment to survivor safety and coordinated public safety response, and the preservation of this program has become an essential part of our domestic violence intervention program. For those of you that don't know, the lethality assessment, or LAP as we call it, is a evidence-based homicide prevention tool that allows law enforcement officers to identify victims of the highest risk of lethal violence and connect them directly in real time to HelpMate services and speak to an advocate on the scene of the incident. We know that only 4% of domestic violence homicide victims ever reached out to a hotline prior to their homicide, so this is one of the best tools we've found to address that gap. The program has resulted in law enforcement engagement more than 1,100 times annually on average, with 72% of survivors continuing into follow-up supportive services beyond that initial connection. The state average is only 35%, so Buncombe County is leading that by more than double the state average. So we should be very proud of this program and the success in this program. We've had significant population growth in Buncombe County over the last decade, but our domestic violence homicide rate per capita has either remained the same or lowered over the last decade with the implementation of this program. It's also one of the only tools operationalizing the goals of the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team, the Coordinated Community Response, and the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council in real time at the scene of an incident. I'd also like to highlight that the North Carolina Department of Justice manages the state's LAP licensing process and has recognized Buncombe County as a leader in implementing this model with fidelity. I personally have had the honor of being recommended by the state multiple times for other counties that are reaching out to begin the implementation process for this very same program, which is something I think that we should be very proud of in this county. At the same time, I want to respectfully emphasize that the need did not end with the extension through December. LAP requires a stable, long-term local investment to function effectively. Fidelity for this model requires a named LAP coordinator housed within a domestic violence service provider agency to ensure survivor-centered practice, confidentiality protections, and consistent follow-up. HelpMate has exhausted all available funding streams while simultaneously leading a major fund-restricted expansion project that'll double the number of beds available for survivors in our community at our shelter. Unfortunately, those funds cannot legally be reallocated to operational positions such as the lab coordinator. So while we're deeply grateful for the extension, we also are asking the county to continue working towards a sustainable funding solution beyond January 1st, be it a collaborative effort through the Justice Services, Sheriff's Office, and Asheville Police Department, or a dedicated line budget. We do believe this project saves lives and reflects the values of this community, and we thank you for your time and your leadership and your consideration on this.
Thank you. Rob Stetson.
Need a bigger microphone, or I need to shrink. My name is Rob Stetson, and I am actually a candidate for commissioner this fall. And so I just wanted to bring some news to you from the campaign trail. And it's fascinating because everybody I talk to, number one thing they say is, why did the value of my property double? And that's a huge concern. And I'm sure you're hearing this too. You have to be hearing it. If I'm hearing it, you're hearing it too. And what's my property tax going to be? A lot of them think their property tax has already gone up. But I always give them the same answer. I said it's probably twice as much as you want to spend and half as much as they want to increase it. But I would be a fool to criticize the commission because I may very well be working with you here next year. And so it wouldn't be prudent for me to go out there and talk negatively about any of you. So I explained to everyone that you're a great group of people. You're extremely compassionate. You're hardworking, you come from a very diverse background, and you mean the best for everybody that lives in our county. You want the best for everybody that lives in our county. And you draw a lot upon your own personal experiences throughout your life. Some of you have been struggling college students. Some of you have started businesses. All of you have had to manage your own personal budget at some time. You had to make sacrifices. You had to make cuts. You had to determine what's important, what's not important. What do I spend now? What do I not spend? And that's what I tell everyone, that you will draw upon your own personal experiences to develop and adopt a budget based on what makes sense by cutting things that are not necessary. And I just hope that I'm not lying to the people out there when I tell them that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Andrew Paul.
Oh, boy. Okay. Hi, everyone. I live in West Asheville. I teach history at AB Tech. My kids go to Asheville City Preschool, and I just want to say, please raise my taxes. I own a small townhome. My family doesn't take up a lot of space. And now with this proposed budget, I might have to pay $150 more. But that means someone with a really big home on a really big lot is going to contribute much more, and that's a good thing for this county. That's how taxes should work. As a history professor, I'm fascinated by the roots of the anti-tax movement. I'm sure you all know it was started by this horrible racist guy in California in the 1970s who wanted to defund public schools. I don't think we want to go down that direction. This guy spread all sorts of myths. He spread the myth that property taxes are regressive. They're not. They're a wealth tax. The myth that property taxes hurt renters. This is the worst one. It turns out it's not true. Rents are set by demand. And some of you know me. You know that in addition to being a history professor, I am a nerd when it comes to housing policy. So I was really curious when I read in the news about the gentleman who was here a couple weeks ago, and maybe that was him, a couple of speakers ago, speaking against the tax increase, saying that it would hurt our housing market. The truth is that when places neglect to collect reasonable property taxes, that actually makes housing more expensive. And it particularly hurts first-time home buyers because it makes it easier for people to park their property wealth and to just sit on it. So if this modest property tax increase affects home values negatively, that's a good thing for this county. Neglecting to collect property taxes benefits the people in Buncombe County that own 12 acres, 24 acres of land. Economists agree property tax reductions are effectively a transfer of wealth from the young to the old, from those with no property wealth to those with a lot of property wealth. A reasonable increase in property tax, on the other hand, is said to work like a mortgage. It gives young people, first-time home buyers, a lower barrier of entry because 30 years of taxes aren't collected up front. And it mitigates home values at the same time. So let's tax the wealthy. Let's have a property tax that gives money to our schools, to services that we need, and that at the same time discourages the private hoarding of our county's land when we are in the middle of a housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who did not sign up who would like to speak during public comment? Yes, come on, Pepe.
Mr. Paul is a hard act to follow. So there were 2 points that I thought I would try to get across that I haven't spoken with you folks together about before. And one is just a simple math thing. Approximately 24% of the property value in Buncombe County is inside of the Asheville City Special Tax District. And with our current ADM-driven allotments, we see about a third of that exported to Buncombe County schools. We are not arguing against that. We need to spread that wealth out. I understand that that's our economic center, but our district doesn't even expand to cover half of the city of Asheville. So that 24%, just keep that in mind when you're thinking about what the special tax does to bring some funds in. The special tax is the only tax, this is the Asheville City Schools tax, that is a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer. Every other tax rate that you're setting covers the whole county. So it gives you an extra tool for a little bit of precision, and it is a tax that has existed for over 100 years. Something that has come up very recently that surprised us after we sent in our budget request from the Asheville City Schools Board of Education, and again, I'm speaking just as an individual elected member, is that 8% promise that our legislators have made for raises for teachers. The way that that is currently in the draft structured is leaning way heavily to our lowest paid teachers, our beginning teachers. So it's a 17% chance, a 17% raise for our beginning teachers. And it's a very small raise for our most experienced. As you folks may remember, 70% of our teachers are paid with state allotments that are unconstitutionally low, given the Leandro case. And the remaining 30% we support with local funds. While that 30% covers those beginning teachers. So while it's an 8% raise, shifting the raises higher for the beginning teachers is a way to shift the tax burden from the state legislature to local government. Because we will have to come up with that 17% for our lowest paid teachers without any help from the state. And we come to you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the budget? All right, if not, we will close the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. We also, do you may go ahead and open the floor, John, for the economic development?
Yeah, I have one slide for that.
Great.
It's the last slide of my presentation. These are the economic development allocations. There are routine appropriations for the Asheville-Buncombe Regional Sports Commission, the Asheville-Buncombe County Economic Development Coalitions, and then we have previous economic development agreements which are still in effect for Borg-Warner, New Belgium, and Pratt & Whitney.
Thank you. All right, we will open the public hearing for the economic development at 7:04 PM. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this matter? All right, there being none, we'll close the floor at the public hearing at 7:04 PM.
We only had to hear the public hearing tonight.
Okay, all right.
No action tonight.
No action this evening, and as has been stated, we do continue to work with the manager and John to address any questions, challenges, changes to the budget. So as I said 2 weeks ago, the hard work has begun, and we're digging in even deeper after this evening's public hearing and listening to those who took the time to come speak with us. So thank you for making time in your schedule to come be a part of the public hearing. We appreciate y'all. Okay, we'll move to new business. Our 2026 general obligation bond referendum, and Melissa Moore, our finance director, has the presentation.
So tonight's request for action from the board is the first step in a multi-step process to effectively move toward a bond referendum in November. The first step that we are seeking tonight is going to be in relation to the briefing item on the projects that were discussed earlier today, and that would be open space projects at $30 million and affordable housing projects at $40 million. Two resolutions tonight required as a part of this process. Oh, I'm sorry. The first one is a resolution directing publication of the notice of intent to apply to the local government commission for approval of bonds. The second resolution is a resolution authorizing the finance director to apply to the local government commission and making certain findings of fact. So the next steps, I will come back to you at your next meeting on June 2nd to introduce the bond orders and to ask you to consider a resolution for setting a public hearing. I will come back to you on June 16th. That meeting, we will hold the public hearing on the bond orders, ask you to accept and adopt the bond orders, and consider a resolution setting a special bond referendum. So the recommended action this evening is the adoption of the two resolutions.
Commissioners, are there questions for Melissa? If not, do we have a motion? These, as she said, these need to be approved separately. The first to approve the resolution, the notice of intent.
Motion to approve the, notice of intent.
That's correct. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Sloan. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, resolution carries. Thank you, Melissa. We have a second motion to approve the statements of fact and authorization to apply.
Make a motion to approve the resolution regarding statements of fact and authorization to apply.
Second.
Did you get that? Terry or Drew? It was at the same time. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Melissa, thank you very much. All right, we have, our next item is a resolution to accept hazard mitigation grant program properties. And Kevin Madsen, our
Disaster Recovery Officer, has more for us. Good evening, Kevin.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kevin Madsen, Buncombe County Helene Recovery Officer. Tonight, we're just asking a follow-up from our hazard mitigation briefing earlier today to accept or to approve the resolution for us to accept hazard mitigation properties through the state and federal funded hazard mitigation grant program. County Manager Avril Pender, in a partnership with Kurt, our attorney, have reviewed and developed the resolution to accept the HMGP properties. We're asking for y'all to accept that resolution.
Great. Are there any questions for Kevin? If not, do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Horton. Thank you, Commissioner Whitesides. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, resolution carries. Thank you. We appreciate it, Kevin. And we have one more item of new business, and that is a budget amendment to realize insurance proceeds for Helene vehicle replacement, and John Hudson is making his way back up front.
Thank you. This budget amendment realizes $606,000 in insurance proceeds to replace 7 sheriff's vehicles and 1 tax assessment vehicle that were damaged at the county garage during Tropical Storm Helene.
Are there any questions or a motion?
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Horton. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John. All right, we do not have any board appointments this week. Do any commissioners have updates from boards or commissions that you serve on?
I have an update. Yes, and you all have something there at your desk too from our North Carolina Counties Care. But I attended our North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Board of Directors meeting this weekend. And so just a few updates. We adopted our 5-year strategic plan, and you will be able, if you haven't already looked at that, please, you can see that online, and they did a fantastic job with it. And really, the gentleman speaking about targets earlier, I thought of this when he was mentioning that. We also adopted our 26-27 budget with a focus on stabilizing, realigning, and strengthening, and tying that back in directly to the strategic plan. We also, as you might not be surprised, had a lot of discussion around things going on at the legislature, especially with potential constitutional amendments and all that. And what I really appreciate about serving on this board of directors is, of course, we're working with our colleagues from across the state and various political parties. And one thing that we certainly all agreed on beyond the budget and the strategic plan was that we should be looking at targeted tax relief across the state, such as something that actually is meaningful for the people in the state, such as the homestead exemptions and the circuit breaker, and looking at reforming those to make those more impactful for people, rather than, as one of our colleagues said, for the state taking away local control, where local control is central to our democracy. And it just was very impactful that we all agreed upon this, no matter our political party. So there at your desk, you have some information from the county care. There's also, I think the 2 white papers are online now, I believe. The first one definitely is on the rural health care, and then the white paper on the jails will be on healthcare in our jails will be coming soon. And also, if you haven't signed up, you all have an email, and tomorrow at 2 p.m., we can join virtually and get more information about healthcare in our jails. And so I plan on doing that. Hope anybody else that's able to will be doing that as well. And if you aren't able to, then those of us who do can provide you some updates.
Thank you. Thanks, Commissioner Wells. We appreciate that. Thanks for your service on that board and reporting back to us.
Most definitely, thank you. I think I just recently realized the importance of having the NCACC there as a resource for commissioners, especially as a new commissioner. And we know that our plates is full, but for you to just be so dedicated and you're so good at bringing information back, I'm grateful for that, Commissioner Wells. It's an honor to serve with you.
Are there any other boards and commission updates? Okay.
Just, we have a whole lot of vacancies on boards.
Yes, as we did
We have
hear.
5 on the Health and Human Services Board.
Yes, as we heard from Rachel at 3 PM, there are a lot of vacancies, and so we can help push that information out
Repeating it is always.
to residents to serve on. And I think we'll have some additional ones coming online later this week.
Trying to think.
All right, we do have an announcement. The next briefing and regular meeting of the board will be on June 2nd, with the briefing starting at 3 PM downstairs. We'll move back up here for our 5 PM meeting in chambers. Kurt, do we have a closed session this evening?
Yes, we do. I need a motion to, that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners go into closed session for the following reason: to establish or to instruct the public body's staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by the public body in negotiating the price or other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease. The authority to do this is contained in 143-318-.11A5.
And you do not anticipate that we'll
No,
be
we
taking
do not,
action
we will
in
not take any
open
action,
session.
so we would adjourn from the closed session.
Great, thank you. Do we have a motion to enter closed session?
Motion to enter closed session.
Thanks. Do we have a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. We are in closed session. Thanks to everyone who came out this evening. We appreciate you.